Oliver Berkman's got this great frame where he talks about choose in advance what you're going to suck at.
Oh yeah.
It's in 4,000 weeks, and if you are a type A go-getter person who has what I call the curse of competence, your options in life are restricted more by what you choose than what you can do. You will feel disquiet when something that you used to be great at begins to slip because you've focused your attention elsewhere. You used to be in really great shape. You said that one of your goals this year was to get a raise, or to be able to buy your first house, or to find a partner, or to do whatever. Hey, guess what? If you're spending 4 or 5 nights a week going to places where you can maybe date, or going out on dates, or doing whatever, you're probably not going to have as much time to dedicate to the gym. If you want to get that raise or be able to save for your first house or whatever, you're going to have to work later, which maybe means that your friends are going to drop off. If you pick whatever the thing is, there is a price that you begin to pay. And this cycle began for me so frequently toward the back end of my 20s, where I would dedicate myself to a thing, then something else would begin to slip. So I would then go, I'll just give a little bit. I'll just give a little bit to that. And it's not an additive system, it's multiplicative. It's not 2 plus 3, it's 2 times 3. And that means that the more that you would attend to the thing that you say that you're going to do, the more the gains accrue to you. And then you can still pivot back, but you need to periodize things. And this is a frame that I wish, even now it's still something that I struggle with, realizing that now isn't forever. The thing that you're doing right now doesn't need to be forever.
Yeah.
If you are coming out the back of the searching for the partner thing and you're like, hey, guess what? I gained 15 pounds.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, dedicate yourself for the next 6 months to going to the gym. But this isn't the rest of your life.
Right.
And once that thing's done, oh, well, guess what? I'm back to, 12% body fat. I feel great about myself. What's next? It's not forever.
Yeah. It's just for now.
Yes.
We have a frame that we actually use a lot. I always think about these things from a business context, but they end up retroactively, applying to life. But when we're making big strategic decisions, we say, which problems would we prefer? And so rather than talking about the gains and what's the upside, if we have let's say we're going to make a big investment in software for this company, or we're going to make a big, a new service line, or we're going to decide to develop a physical product, right? I mean, I know you were literally on the just back half of a big decision like this yourself. It's okay, let's imagine what the problems are going to be if we decide to do this new service category. Well, some people are going to complain that they're not getting results from this thing. We're going to have a ton we might have some negative reviews in the short term that we're going to have to deal with. Let's look at what happens when one of our favorite customers tells us to fuck off. Let's really sit in what each of these problems is. And then when we spell out all of the problems and we don't even think about the upside, say which of these problems do we prefer and which are we more equipped to deal with? Sometimes we have really amazing innovation and, in my opinion, really solid decision making that comes afterwards that minimizes kind of the post-decision regret, because we also know what negatives would have come with the path unchosen. Because most times our regrets come from the path unchosen because we imagine it only with the upside. We only think about, I think there's a book where a girl lives many different versions of her life. And
Midnight Library.
Yes. And the thing is that there's these pieces of her life that she imagines are going to be amazing, but then she realizes her best friend's dead, or all of a sudden she's pregnant, and you're like, whoa, what happened? And so we don't take into account on the paths not taken the things that we would have lost along the way. And so I think really good decision making and also regret minimization is that when you make the decision, you think about the downsides too, and you remember what those downsides are. And for me, that has been one of my strongest frames for I didn't decide to do that. Were all that? Oh yeah, those were a lot of, I'm glad those are problems I'm very happy I don't have to deal with now.
Thinking about the perils of over-optimization is something I brought up with Huberman last year. And, I think a lot of people, I have a friend who's a very well-known DJ that told me he was falling out of love with DJing because he knew that it was damaging his sleep. And because he knew how important sleep was to performance, that he'd kind of got him, the bar stool had been turned upside down a little bit, and the thing that he was trying to do was being sacrificed for the thing which is supposed to facilitate it. And that's where you lose more life trying to optimize everything than just living it. The stress of trying to be perfect is killing you more quickly than your imperfections.
All right, so I'm glad we came back to optimization because there's obviously on the extreme, there's guys like Brian Johnson with Blueprint who are trying to like live to 200 or live forever, and I respect dedication to anything always, and interestingly I've always been a maximizer, so I've actually not really been an optimizer in my life. It's like as soon as I have an input-output equation where it's like n equals x, and it's like, and if I want 10x, I do 10n. I'm like, great, then can we do 1000n? Like, I just want to do as much of that as I humanly possible. But when I love competitors who like optimizing because I always see it as a weakness because it's so easy to exploit. It's like, oh, you need your 8 hours of sleep, or you need your morning routine, or if you don't have your supplements, you're just totally fucked. Or like, I didn't have my coffee this morning, so I can't function. Like, I love to compete against people like that because they're so easy to break. Yeah. And so what happens is the optimizations become superstition, correct? And so my fear around, and maybe I take a more extreme stance on this, but like I've always wanted to be able to, with an internet connection and a laptop and a fold-out chair, go make money. And always have that as my North Star, that anything else is extra. And I feel like I lose more quickly when I get into this optimization cycle around, because I remember years ago, I bought one of those rings that tracks your sleep, and I kept trying to like set sleep PRs, and you can only get so high anyways. And then I started stressing more about not hitting sleep PRs, that I was sleeping worse than when I wasn't tracking it. And so then I was like, well, this thing, and I slept fine the next night. And so obviously microcosm, I'm a big believer in tracking progress in general, but just the idea that we become so overly romantic around these things that sometimes you just have to break shit. And sometimes you have to be violent. And sometimes when you're on your journey, you're not going to sleep much, and you're gonna like, there was a 2-year period where I did turnarounds for gyms. I flew around the nation. Every month I would do a new gym. I ate out of gas stations, and I ate gas station food, and I gained weight during that period of time. And it was for then and not forever, and I'm in shape now, and so whatever, who cares? And so like, I used to tell this when I was selling weight loss to people. I'd say like, who cares if you get in shape for 6 weeks out of 80 years? And like, right as they're about to sign up for a membership, I was like, you want to sign, and then this is how I would sell longer memberships, but like, it's also true. It's like, you want to sign up for the 6 weeks, but like, Susan, like, who cares if you lose 20 pounds and you're still overweight 6 weeks from now, and then you gain it back the next 6 weeks and you're still the exact same weight for the rest of your life? And so I think the absolute dedication to maximization, so that it becomes a part of your identity and your character, has been one of the outsized returns that I've gotten in my life. And just being absolutely willing to like, I'm pretty violent about this, but like, list all the things that you aren't willing to give up for the dreams that you have, and that is what the person who will beat you is willing to give up.
There's a phenomenal blog post that talks about why guys aren't getting girlfriends. And this is pre-modern dating crisis. So it's not to do with like imbalances on Tinder and tall girl problem and all that stuff. It's a guy who thinks that the bare minimum is acceptable. So he talks about how I'm always on time, and you know, I hold the door open. And I say please and thank you, and I'm nice to my mum. And the dude, I'll never forget it, there's this line in the blog post where the guy who's like having this pretend dialogue with this imaginary person goes, so what? There's a guy who does all of those things and he plays the guitar.
Well, it's like the song lyric, baby, you the whole package and you pay your taxes. Yeah, I mean, I think also to the same degree, I mean, like, I'm no mating whatever expert, like, no idea. I got married early, did all the things that, you know, whatever you're not supposed to do. But yeah, and yet, if you were true to you, like, what's the most uncringe thing, right, is you being you. I'm pretty sure that I turned away plenty of girls who were like, this guy is successful, he's in shape, you know, decent looking, strikingly handsome. But they'd meet me and they'd be like, what a f***ing weirdo. But the thing is like, they, like, and I remember I had, there were so many girls that I was like, you're pretty. And I just don't care at all. And so I wanted someone who got my peculiarities, who was like not only like accepting of them, but just like down for it. And so I walked through most of my, and to be fair, as a side note, for anybody who like wants to quote be exceptional, you're going to be different, and people are going to think you're weird, and like you might not get second dates. But real, you're not going to want the second date too, because they're not like you. Like when you get unplugged, you're like, oh wow, everyone's a sheep. This is weird. And you just go on a zillion first dates to be like, yet another one, yet another one. And every once in a while you see a glimmer of someone and they're like, oh, you can think for yourself. Like you can make your own conclusions. I remember when Layla and I went on our first date, we went at a frozen yogurt store. And so of course I'm like, so you know how they make their money here, right? I was like, so these things weigh this, they charge this per ounce. And I was like breaking this whole thing down. And she was like, oh yeah, and they do this and this. And I was like, wait, you see this too? Like it wasn't like just like Alex just talking about
the child out of the fucking Sixth Sense or whatever it is.
I was so excited because normally I would just have to like I would talk about the stuff that at least I like to talk about because it would pass the time. Not good dating strategy.
I'm just here to entertain myself.
Yeah. But then she also like talked about this stuff and I was like, holy shit.
Well, what's the alternative? The alternative is to find someone who falls in love with a role that you're playing.
Right.
That's the best that you can hope for.
Right.
And then lock yourself in to a future of having to perform in a way that this person has become accustomed to.
And there's nothing that can be more lonely than I could possibly imagine than pretending every single hour of every day that you're someone you're not.
Subscribe.
Subscribe. Subscribe. Subscribe.
Subscribe. Hustler Definity.
Hustler Definity. Hustler Definity. Hustler Definity.
Hustler Definity.